One company that I think still does it, and they've just recently expanded into Canada, is a company called Everlane. And they were our model when we looked at it because they were a very interesting story. They started their company without an actual company. Their entire company was this sign-up system and the sign-up and mandatory referral. And they didn't actually have a catalog, and they weren't letting anybody in because they didn't have a catalog, but they were using that growth of their sign-ups to potentially go out and get investor funding. And they did get investor funding based on the momentum that they had on signups, and then they used that investor funding to build the catalog and then started letting people in to see that catalog. So they were our model of it. They also have a different value proposition from us, which is they're trying to cut out the middleman in fashion. Whereas our value proposition was trying to consolidate the ethical market, the ethical market. And when you think about cutting out the middleman in fashion, there's an argument to be made. It's like, well, you actually need to grow that slowly. And there isn't room right now for a flood of very direct purchasing of fashion from provider to basically just being sold because there's just limited supply and there's limited demand. For us, there was a lot of, and it goes to that confusion we were causing because a lot of people couldn't understand why we were doing it, what we were doing. And our arguments for it didn't make a lot of sense, and we knew they didn't make a lot of sense. And we didn't really bother to explore that because it was sort of working in that it was increasing our sign-up rate, but not to the level that we had hoped. So I think that's where the failure was. I mean, I don't think it's a terrible strategy for companies. I wouldn't say that no company should ever do it. I think that in order to do it, there's taking the physical action or the visible action of making mandatory referrals. And then there's a whole lot of other things about why and the consistency and the messaging of it, which are very easy to ignore. And I think we might have ignored that and done the very easy route of what we could see. Whereas I think other companies, whether they did the work or they stumbled into the right combination, may have got it right. Interestingly, though, as these companies have grown to a level where they're no longer small players, they've all actually taken down their mandatory referrals. I don't know if Everlane has or not. I wouldn't be surprised if they have. And they all did it around the same time. And when they did it, we were noticing it. And we're like, oh, that's interesting. But they're bigger than us. And their reasons for it that they've said were, well, we've hit the size that we want to hit. We don't need this anymore. We feel that people will naturally kind of come to us now. And now I actually wonder whether that was true or not. That was the messaging that they provided. But whether the reason was it was actually not as effective as they were seeing it. When it was new and interesting and no one had seen it before, it was causing less friction. But now when it was other companies have done it, it's like, okay, I see what you're trying to do. I don't know if I agree with it or not. Some people do, some people don't. The shock and surprise value of it has taken the interest away from people willing to participate in it. And I wonder if a lot of these companies took it down just because the tactic was becoming overused and therefore not as effective as it once was.
But not necessarily unethical.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I would call it unethical. I think that's a strong... people have accused us all the time. When people vehemently complained, people have said, how can you call yourself ethical and do something like this? I don't think really ethics have anything to do with a mandatory referral system. I think it's just a process. It's not like we were causing harm. It's not like people's lives were ruined due to our actions. I think there was a lot of rhetoric around it, and I think there was a lot of expectations that people had that weren't met, and a lot of disappointment that their expectations weren't met. I don't think that's an ethics question. I think that's a very good understanding your market and setting and delivering on correct expectations with your market. And And that being said, I think that people, when they saw the word ethical ocean, they didn't expect a marketing tactic like that, and therefore were disappointed, and that's what fueled a lot of the complaints. But I don't know if I would necessarily call it unethical, because I don't see where harm is, because it's, the day before you knew about Ethical Ocean, your life wasn't in shambles versus the day after you knew about Ethical Ocean and knew about a mandatory referral system. Like, I don't think your life and your standing and your dignity as a person was affected in that way. I think there was a lot of confusion that was caused, and that's not a great marketing angle to cause confusion. But I think the ethics, I don't see it as being on an ethical dimension.